Hey there folks, this is Miss History coming to you with another bizarre history tidbit. This time we'll be focusing on Stalin and his photo trick. Want to see a magic trick? Now you see him? Now you don't. Compare a photo taken in the 1930s of the 5 Communist Party officials in the USSR, and you'll see Pavel Enyukid's photograph next to Soviet Premier Vyacheslav Molotov and others. But during Joseph Stalin's Great Purge, the one-time member of the Communist Party's highest governing body was deemed an enemy of the state and then executed by the firing squad. Then he disappeared from Soviet photographs, his existence blotted out by a retouched suit on another official from the original photo. Enyukid's erasure was the product of a real conspiracy to change public perception in the USSR during Joseph Stalin's dictatorship. Stalin's commitment to censorship and photo doctoring was so strong that at height of the Soviet Union's international power, he rewrote history using photo alterations. The stakes weren't just historical. Each erasure meant a swing of Stalin's loyalties, and most disappeared subjects also disappeared in real life too, meaning they were killed. After consolidating his power in 1929, Stalin declared war on Soviets he considered tainted by their connections to the political movements that had come before him. Beginning in 1934, he wiped out an ever-changing group of political enemies. An estimated 750,000 people during the Great Purge died, and more than 1 million others were banished to remote areas to do hard labor in gulags. During the purges, many of Stalin's enemies simply vanished from their homes. Others were executed in public after trials. And since Stalin knew the value of photographs in both the historical record and his use of mass media to influence the Soviet Union, they often disappeared from photos too. Stalin used a large group of photo retouchers to cut his enemies out of supposedly documentary photographs. One such erasure was Nikolai Yusov, a secret police official who oversaw Stalin's purges. For a while, Yusov worked at Stalin's right hand, interrogating, falsely accusing, and ordering the executions of thousands of Communist Party officials. But in 1938, Yusov fell from Stalin's favor after being usurped by one of his own deputies. He was denounced, secretly arrested, tried in a secret court, and executed. Stalin's censors then removed Yusov from the photographic record, including cutting him from the photograph in which he smiled next to his former boss, Stalin, next to a waterway. The photo retouchers removed Yusov from the photo and inserted new water to cover up the space where Yusov would have been. Stalin did the same with scores of party officials who had been photographed next to him at various events. Sometimes, official censors had to retouch photos over and over again as the list of political enemies grew longer. In one photo, Stalin is shown with a group of 3 of his deputies. As each deputy fell out of his favor, they were snipped out until the only one left was Stalin. It's thought that Stalin's obsession with photo doctoring constituted a mini-industry in the USSR. Publishers were contacted by Stalin's minions and told to eliminate the enemy from upcoming photos. And they did. According to design historian Peter King, who uncovered thousands of doctored photos and the original versions, the work was not performed in one location, or even through an official ministry. Sometimes, photo doctoring meant going back into the past to change the historical record, as when Stalin ordered Lev Trotsky, once a leading figure in the Communist Party, eliminated from all the photos. After Trotsky was exiled by Stalin for mounting a failed opposition towards his leadership, the revolutionary was snipped, airbrushed, and covered up in countless photographs. Sometimes, Stalin inserted himself in photos at key moments in history, or had a photo technician make him look taller or more handsome. Even the citizens took part in the action. As Stalin's purges became more and more widespread, civilians who feared being branded as his political enemies began to realize that owning photographs of Stalin's political enemies, even photos in books or magazines, was dangerous. So, they learned to deface their own materials with scissors or ink. Stalin's obsession with image manipulation didn't stop with photos. The dictator commissioned an army of painters to create his official portrait, offering some artists massive amounts of money to paint him. Then, the official portrait was reproduced and retouched over and over until it met with Stalin's liking. As photo doctoring became more and more common in the USSR's propaganda effort, it also became a way to evade Stalin's wrath. Take the famous photo of Soviet soldiers raising their flag over bombed-out Rostov during the Battle of Berlin at the end of World War II. This now iconic photo was staged. It was also altered specifically to sidestep Stalin's anger. The photographer concealed the wrists of the soldiers, which were covered in stolen wristwatches they had looted from German citizens on their way to Reichstag. Stalin had ordered his soldiers not to loot, so the watches would have caused the soldiers to be disciplined and perhaps killed. Stalin shows that image manipulation can be a way of literally erasing today's political enemies from tomorrow's picture of history and making the future as unreliable as the present filled with propaganda and lies. This time we will be focusing on Albert Einstein's presidency offer. Nobel laureate Albert Einstein, though best known for his genius in theory of relativity, was also an outspoken political activist throughout his life. He used his fame and influence to back causes he truly believed in, denouncing Nazism in Germany, campaigning for the State of Israel, and criticizing racism in the United States. Einstein's involvement in politics and social causes had an early beginning. In 1919, after Einstein's theory of relativity was confirmed, he became a well-known celebrity almost overnight. Rather than restricting himself to only talking about science when he was interviewed, he also aired his political views. However, the Smithsonian reports that from the beginning, even his friends cautioned him against using his new celebrity to speak out, urging him to stop because he didn't know what he was talking about. He spoke out about the racism he observed on trips to the United States and protested injustices. Einstein was also a significant person when it came to the creation of the State of Israel. The Guardian recounts that Israel asked Einstein's help in convincing India to support Israel's statehood. One Israeli statistician at the time jokingly told Time magazine he might even be able to work out the mathematics for our economy and make sense out of it. Although Einstein was unsuccessful, he corresponded with and received a considered reply from India's Prime Minister at the time, Jawaharlal Nehru. Israel did receive its statehood, and later, when the first president died in 1952, the Israeli ambassador to the United States approached Einstein, asking if he would be willing to serve as the president's successor. The first president of Israel, Chaim Weizmann, stated that Einstein was the greatest Jew alive, and he wished him to be a successor. However, Einstein, who was 73 at the time, and not even an Israeli citizen, cited old age, inexperience, and insufficient people skills as reasons why he would not be the proper choice. Einstein respectively declined. Einstein was quoted as saying in response to the offer, "I am deeply moved by the offer from our State of Israel, and at once saddened and ashamed that I cannot accept it." Einstein's political activism throughout his life allowed him to use his fame for good and to fight for causes he truly believed in. However, he seems to have also known his limitations, turning down a position when he felt he was not the right person for the job, despite being unquestionably good at other things. This time, we will be focusing on Napoleon's bunny hunt. So after signing the treaties of Tilsit in 1807, Napoleon wanted to celebrate, and what better way to do that than by organizing a rabbit hunt. He asked his chief of staff, Alexander Berthier, to set it all up. According to the legend, Berthier went a little overboard with his preparations. Rather than gathering a reasonable number of rabbits for the hunt, like 30 or 40, he allegedly got about 3,000 rabbits. Let that sink in. 3,000 rabbits. When Napoleon and his hunters were ready, Berthier released the rabbits on the edge of an open grassy field. Rabbits are normally pretty timid creatures, and everyone just kind of expected them to flee. But that's not what ended up happening. The rabbits charged Napoleon and his group, and before long they were swarmed. When it became clear that they weren't going to let up, Napoleon retreated. It turned out Berthier had cheated a bit with the rabbits, and he'd picked up tame farm rabbits that had no reason to be scared of people. As for the rabbits, they almost certainly did not mean any harm, but seeing that many rabbits charging towards you, you'd be a little scared too. I've been on a few rabbit hunts before. Those suckers are pretty fast. I couldn't even begin to imagine 3,000 rabbits running at me. That wraps it up for today. I'm Miss History signing off. So tune in.